Welcome back to Inside Steelers Nation on SNR. I'm Randy Slack with Dale Lolley, Matt Williamson. The Steelers playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know what it's going to be. My goal this week to somehow convince you, Dale, and to a lesser extent Matt, but
I'm
mainly
a little more on the fence.
Mainly Dale. That look, I'm not saying the Jags are going to win and then they're going to go and hoist the Lombardi. But, I mean, they have a chance. They're a good team. We thought that, there was a chance they were going to win 12.
They're a good team except for the quarterback.
Right. And I know that
you disagree with me. There we go.
Well, look, obviously, if you looked at the 8 quarterbacks left in the playoffs, and it's and it's a quarterback-driven league, especially when it comes to the playoffs, as we mentioned in the first couple of segments. Matt,
I would take Case Keenum over Blake Bortles.
Yes. I don't think I'd take Foles over.
But hold on.
I don't know. I mean, Foles has at least had a good year at one point.
Yeah, that was kind of make-believe too, though. I mean, it wasn't as good as it looked.
How much is the Case Keenum stuff make-believe? Well, there's a really good team out there in Minnesota.
But he's a veteran guy. I think he's making plays on his own. I also think Bortles is better than he's been. Like this year to year, this has been his best year.
If you switched Bortles and Keenum, if you switched their teams.
If you put Keenum in Jacksonville, I think
they're a 6-10 team.
No, I was going to say the opposite.
8-8.
I was going to say
they're like 13-3. They would have been contending. I guarantee you, they would. They're not going into losing at Arizona. They're not.
Their
losing to San Francisco.
Their playmakers are significantly better on Minnesota than they are in.
Agreed, but less is asked. Well, they both are the 2 best defenses in the league, so there's some similarities. I don't know. I think if you gave him Keenum, if you swapped out Bortles and put Keenum in, the Steelers and Patriots would still be the best 2 teams in the AFC.
Sure.
But Jacksonville would be clearly 3. Ahead of anybody. Kansas City looks worse than they did a day or 2 ago.
Sure.
But they may have ended up with a bye.
See, I think Bortles, if he had the guys in Minnesota, if he had that offense, I think he'd play a little better. I mean, they don't have anybody on the outside really.
No,
compared to Thielen and Diggs and those guys.
Well, they've developed some dudes. Like D.D. Westbrook's not bad, and some of these guys are okay.
Lee's
all right. I mean, they're okay. I mean, they're not certainly Thielen and Diggs.
But nobody knew who Thielen was 2 years ago.
Right.
That's true.
I mean, he's just kind of a guy that Minnesota has developed.
Right.
But I also think you can do more with Keenum. Like yesterday, Keenum would have been not only attempting or completing throws. I mean, that was an awful game by Bortles. But you do more. I mean, and you game plan going into it with we're going to attack downfield more. We're not going to hide the quarterback as much.
They're not throwing 14 screen passes
to me and you.
I mean, he threw 23 passes yesterday for 87 yards. That's Joe Flacco like.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco won the Super Bowl. I don't know if you remember.
Not throwing 23 passes for 87 yards.
I don't know if you remember, Dale.
Not throwing 23 passes for 87 yards.
Super Bowl champion Joe Flacco.
That was the one year he threw the ball down the field.
Throwing the way he throws now, he put up 38 points on the Steelers.
It's all well and good, Randy.
If Blake Bortles puts up 38 points, the Steelers are gone.
You've already agreed with me that he stinks. He's the weak part of their team.
Of the 8 quarterbacks left, he's the worst. Drew Brees is awesome. Tom Brady's awesome.
I do think he's a little fragile mentally.
Yeah, I do.
That to me,
I agree.
And I mean that mostly in a bad way, but also
I don't know how you mean.
How can you mean that in a good way?
Well, in that when he's hot, I think he gets an inflated impression of himself, and that's when he plays his best. He can be a little bit streaky, and when things are going well, he starts thinking he's good, and he can make some throws because he has ability. But when he's down, he's miserable down. Like last year, I mean, his body language was terrible, and he looked like he had no self-esteem. I mean, and that's why I mean mostly negative by saying that.
He's Blake Bortles. Why should he have any self-esteem?
Well, that's not very nice. Everybody should have self-esteem.
It's funny because when they were benching him in the preseason, I did a show with Madden. I call in, and Mark asked me, would you want him if the Jaguars were to cut him? Would you bring him in and make him the long-term replacement for Ben Roethlisberger? I'm like, no. He stinks.
Especially then. I mean, like I liked him less then than I do now. I mean, before the season. I'm coming off last year. He was dreadful.
Yeah, he stinks.
Yeah, you've mentioned that.
We didn't really get a chance to talk to you about the games over the weekend, Dale. What were your big takeaways from the wild card action, other than Blake Bortles stinks?
Well, that was going to be my first comment. Blake Bortles stinks. I thought that the Kansas City-Tennessee game was very poorly officiated. Several just glaring mistakes that were made in that game that just really kind of tainted the whole process, I thought.
Yeah, we didn't bring that up, but I think you're right.
Kansas City, when they lost Kelsey and Jones, I mean, nobody talks about them losing Jones, but that hurt as well. He's their best. Yeah. Did you? Okay. Okay, but he's their best defensive lineman.
I know. It was a big deal.
It was a big deal, and nobody mentioned it during the broadcast or even in the aftermath. It was all about losing Kelsey, but they had 21 points at that point.
And they couldn't stop anybody.
They couldn't stop him, yeah. So I think if he's in there, that makes a difference. The NFC games kind of went as I expected. I thought Atlanta would win. I thought the Rams were kind of ripe for the picking. A young team kind of coming out of nowhere, and you're kind of happy to be there at that point. Whereas you're facing a team in Atlanta that's been there and done that, as Mike Tomlin likes to say. And so I thought that they would give the Rams everything that they could handle, and I just didn't know how the Rams were going to shut down Julio Jones. And it's the way it worked out.
Kind of a business trip by Atlanta.
Yeah, and I thought that the Saints would take care of business at home. I thought it would be closer than the first two games, and it was because it's a playoff game. The third time you play that team is tough. No, I thought everything kind of worked out. I still think that the Saints are the team to beat in the NFC. I think they've got the most complete roster.
I kind of feel like whoever wins that upcoming game is going to go to the Super Bowl. Yeah. I think Minnesota's pretty strong.
They're strong, and it's going to be different. It's not going to be easy, but
they got Breeze.
As much as I like Case Keenum, it will be his first playoff start.
Yeah,
and he's playing a quarterback that's pretty good, and still still has weapons. And we saw they can run the ball, they can throw the ball. Defensively, they made some mistakes yesterday in their secondary, but I don't think they're going to make those kind of mistakes again. I think again the first round playoff jitters kind of get you.
Both the NFC teams have Super Bowl quarterbacks on the road.
Right,
like the two road teams.
It's not like they're going to be overwhelmed in the road games. But I think both in the AFC, I think that is going to be the case. I think both young quarterbacks going on the road, well, Mariota did last week, but I thought Kansas City.
Tough place to play.
I thought Kansas City more lost that game than Tennessee did winning it. Like if they don't get the touchdown on the deflection that Mariota catches, they don't win that game.
No, you're probably right on that.
And that's such a fluky play that.
But we talked about it earlier. I mean, one team stuck with the run and one team didn't.
Yeah.
And that eventually paid off. And, Mariota was able to play to his strengths. And Chiefs D isn't very good. And so.
But if I really think if Jacksonville comes out this week and tries to run a similar game plan where they 87 screen passes.
Oh.
And Fournette, before their touchdown drive, I just tweeted it out right before Bortles scrambled again. And at that point, he had 5 rushing attempts. This was on their opening.
He was doing it every play there for a while.
Yeah. He had 5 rushing attempts, and Fournette had 6. This is in the third quarter of that game. If they come out and do that, I mean, they're playing right into the Steelers' hands.
Yeah.
Now, part of that was because Buffalo was putting together some sustained drives.
Yeah, they were winning time possession
there was one
right.
drive that they had. They took over inside their own 10 and ran 14 plays to get it out to midfield. But they got the ball at the midfield. They were winning. They were winning the possession,
which was their only formula too.
Yeah,
right.
And they were shortening the game.
Yeah, and it looked like they were trying to get Bortles confidence, complete some passes. And
they were trying like crazy, and they couldn't do it.
Right. I don't know. If I were Jacksonville, I wouldn't be afraid to punt, and I would throw deep coming in here because I think you're going to have to hit a big play or two, and the Steelers are prone that. If you can get a blown coverage or, D.D. Westbrook's dangerous, I would take deep shots even if it results in an interception or two.
Yeah. Well, they're going to have to trust their defense.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what got them here.
Yeah, to your point, you're going to have to take deep shots. You're going to have to try to get some points to make the Steelers throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if you can get Bennett into, one of your playmakers on the back end forcing a turnover or two.
Now, I think I would single cover AB and single cover the receivers and That doesn't sound smart, but maybe Ben throws you a couple. You know, I think you want the Steelers to throw against you, and hopefully Ramsey's the best player on the field, and Campbell sacks him a couple times, and
the interceptions come from the guys in the middle. It's not really the Ramsey and the Bouye. It's the guy.
And that was really when, and we talked about it a lot at the time when Roethlisberger was struggling throwing over the middle.
Yeah, he was.
A lot of stuff was high, and he really clamped down after that game. And started practicing on Wednesdays and started doing all this. I mean,
he's much better now than that.
Yeah, he's more locked in now than he's been at any point in the season, and I just don't see. I mean, Jacksonville's defense is great. Is it historically great? No. The people who are saying it's historically great, there have been defenses that have been better statistically in this decade. That does not make them historically great. Like when you match them up against the 2008 Steelers or the.
It's not a historically great defense every year.
No.
Or it's not historically great.
Right. They gave up, almost 17 points a game. Their defenses, they give up far fewer points than that, and that's to me, that's what makes a great defense. They went 10-6. You can't be a great defense if you've lost 6 games, in my opinion.
And I think it is a great pass defense. And like I said, if I were them, I would leave my corners on islands a lot. I can't let Bell just gash me 5, 6, 7 over and over, and that's dangerous. But it's real dangerous.
Yeah,
They
need to bank on the possibility that Antonio Brown's not 100%.
Yes,
and that he can't beat Jalen Ramsey.
And Ramsey's awesome. I mean,
he's a great player.
Going to be a Hall of Famer.
And
he's awesome.
If the officials in that game allow the Jaguars to get as handsy as they did last week against the Bills.
Yeah,
that plays into Jacksonville's favor because that's what those
guys. It's not great for AB for sure.
No,
right.
That could be a key. Who the officiating crew is, I don't know yet, and if said officiating crew is going to allow that kind of stuff to happen.
Something to watch early on, though, for sure.
Yeah, but if I'm the Steelers, then okay. If they're gonna allow that stuff, then you gotta match it.
Something we talked about before you came on, I wanted to bring up to you, and we'll talk about it all week, I'm sure. But I think if I were the Steelers on defense, I'd go back to a lot more zones.
Yes.
Don't allow the big play. Keep some eyes on Bortles. They don't have dangerous enough receivers where I want to press them at the I would go back to what they did early in the year.
And to that point, I did a story last week on the rushing yardage that they had given up to Deshaun Kaiser, which was by far the most that they had given up this season. I think it was 61 yards on 6 rushing attempts. They give up one run of 20 or more yards this year to a quarterback, which was the fewest in the league, and it was in that game. But they were playing a lot of man.
It was Bortles?
No, it was to Kaiser.
Oh, okay.
Bortles had, I think, 3 carries for 10 yards against them or something like that. I mean, they did not let him get out of the pocket. No, it was 1 carry for 9 yards. Well, the Steelers gave up the fewest rushing attempts by opposing quarterbacks this season.
I guess that makes sense if you consider they played zone heavy for much of the year.
Yeah,
you run against man,
right, and that's the downfall. Now, if you're playing Tom Brady, he's not going to go sprinting 20 yards down the field on you. You can get away with it there. And when you're playing a quarterback like this, yes, play more zone. You can mix it up. You can play some man at times, but you better have somebody when you're playing man spying the quarterback.
Yes, and to your original point too, Shazier sure helps.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a fast quarterback, they're not faster than Ryan.
No.
Yeah. Well, coming up tomorrow, we'll get a little closer to the divisional round matchup between the Steelers and the Jaguars. We'll hear from Cam Hayward and a lot more. It'll be a Tomlin Tuesday, so we'll get some stuff from that. For Matt Williamson and Dale Lolley, I'm Randy Slack. You've been listening to Inside Steelers Nation on SNR.